make a move and the bunny gets it.
I said, put the bunny back in the box. Why couldn't you put the bunny back in the box?
It's showtime.
Psychically, I'm very well endowed.
I want to know what you're thinking. There are some things you can't hide. I want to know what you're feeling. Tell me what's on your mind.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Rabbit Hole, brand new show, the Gen X Files. Culture and media and some current events from a Gen X perspective. And today I'm going to bring on my first guest, which is Mr. Jon Dexter. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having us on. I appreciate you open up your new season with me.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, I refresh my shows every once in a while. Try not to get stagnant.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Anyway, I like Ike. Usually being vague as usual. How may I be of assistance? Just be there and watch the show anyway. Well, I usually try to have like a wider perspective. So we do push the campaigns, but we usually like start out with a conversation so we can get to know you better, know your perspectives on some
Absolutely, yeah, that
things.
sounds great. Sorry,
And
my shelf
I
is a
know.
little bare. I just went back to my Comic Con Saturday,
Mhm.
so all my comics that were on display are still in the box. So
Oh, okay, no problem, no problem. Did you get some good sales?
yeah, it was decent. It was a really small con,
Mhm.
little one, but it was in my right next to my hometown, so it was 15-minute drive.
Right.
So why not?
Yeah, I imagine that's one thing. My big goal is to get some physical stock to be able to like distribute or sell or to give to people, and
Absolutely.
so that's my big goal for this year is to have a book in hand. Um, so I always admire people that manage to accomplish that. So congratulations on that part. At least you're ahead of me. Anyway.
Well, it's always a grind. It's always a work in progress. It seems like you're
Mhm.
always, every time you do a Kickstarter, you're having to, kind of
Yeah.
reset your batteries and try to
Mhm.
get more people in there so you can
Right.
actually fulfill your campaign. We're about 60% right now. We got 24 days to go, so we're doing okay.
Cool.
Hopefully, you can get funded so the stress will go away finally. So it's
Oh
always
yeah,
are very
definitely.
stressful. So
Well, see, if you were on Fund My Comic, then you could have the goal adjusted up or down depending on what you need. Uh,
yeah, I need to get
so,
on there. I've been meaning to get on my comic. I've heard nothing but great things about it. So
mhm.
that's something I'm definitely gonna look towards to do here, maybe in between my Kickstarter campaigns. So I've got another one coming up in April for Dime Store Detective, my other series,
Right.
issue 5.
Okay.
So kind of going back and forth throughout the year.
Cool. Awesome. Awesome. And speaking of guys who can put comics in hands, Mr. Dave Brink from Genuine Comics. Greetings, gentlemen. Hey, man.
How's it going?
Um, so life goals. I want to be like Dave.
Yeah.
That's my hero right there. Anyway,
Oh yeah.
so we went head to head, character against character, or like last week, and his
Oh, did
character he didn't even promote her, and she kicked my butt. She just
you?
boobs and butt is gonna be a
Oh
great
yeah.
male character every time. It just is.
Yeah, you can't compete against TNA, man.
Mm, no, cannot compete against the TNA. You just can't do it
Yeah.
anyway. It's just fine. It's just fine.
Yeah.
I'm okay with comics being toxic male. I'm okay with that. Anyway, well, so one thing I noticed about you when I read your synopsis is that you seem to have a soft spot in your heart, and you wrote this book basically to kind of like advance the cause of pit bulls.
Yeah.
It seems
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, we had a
and
pit bull next time. I got his picture behind me. Actually,
yeah.
this is who the comic's based on. The look of the
Mm-hmm.
character is based on our
Right.
dog Penny. He passed in
Wow.
2023, but he lived to be almost 14 years. So this comic is kind of a tribute to him to kind of keep his memory alive. It was all an incident
Yeah.
that happened. We had lived in this town in another state, and they had outlawed pit bulls, and ours is a
Mhm.
pit mix. So of course we moved. And that kind of
Right.
inspired a story about this dog that's feared by the public because of his breeding size,
Mhm.
but he actually has a huge heart. It's kind of plays into the theme of prejudice and judging people based on reputation other than
Mhm.
knowing them personally. So there's a lot of themes in the story, and that kind of tackles one of them.
Well, 1 second. Hey, Aaron, good to see you, man.
How's it going?
Well, that got my brains rolling, and I always look to kind of like a wider topic for discussion.
Yeah.
And one of the things that the comic industry really screwed up in recent years. We're talking maybe the last 20 years, maybe it might even go back that far, is when they went to basically put causes in their comic books.
Mhm.
They managed they just like wringed all of the entertainment value out of it and made it
Yeah.
into a basically when I was growing up, there's this Chick Publications, and they made these tracks, okay, and they're really well or animated. The guy was a heck of an artist, but they were always really heavy-handed and and really kind of blunt. And
Yeah.
you know there's people that actually collect them. I mean, they do have
Hmm.
some really incredible animation in them, or really
Okay.
incredible illustration, but you can't really use them as anything like they're not reusable as anything but what they are,
Gotcha.
because
Gotcha.
they're so heavy-handed on the message that
Yeah.
he has like one where a little boy, like somebody loves me is the name of it. It's really beautiful, and that's
Okay.
about the only track you can reuse.
Okay.
But the thing about it is when you look at his most of his work is so heavy-handed, so overt, and yet this
Hmm.
one of them is the one that still gets circulated. The only one that
Oh,
was like kind of generic and didn't shove it down your throat. It kind of like
yeah.
let it be what it was going to be. Uh, what is the concept of the Gen X Files? It's culture, news, and media from a Gen X perspective. We um, we have a very unique generation. We have a very unique way of viewing the world, and that's basically what this show is going to be. You know, you know, or mind your own business. You know, as a Gen Xer, I can say mind your own business. So there you go.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Yeah. I'm more of a
Uh,
fan of, almost all horror movies are
mhm.
metaphors for something, but
Right.
you wouldn't know it unless you actually dig into it. And a lot of stories,
Yeah.
like without
Mhm.
dogs and some of my other ones, I try not to. You can watch it just be entertained, but
Mhm.
there's morals of the story. But yeah, it's not really something that kind of hits anybody over the head. It's kind of themes that we carry out, such as abandonment, of animals, of
Yeah.
people, and whatnot. So
Well,
yeah, I
just
love
like
stories where you can go
just a
either
good
way.
example was Invasion of the Body Snatchers. You know, if you
There
want to
you
go
go. Yep.
horror,
I mean,
and
even Godfather is all a metaphor for capitalism, but unless you're digging into it, you wouldn't even know that. So those are the kind of movies
right,
I like.
right. Well, and I think the big if you're going to put any kind of calls into what your work, it's got to come from the work. It can't come from external. Okay,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it's when you start shoving things into the work, that's when you've warped it, you've destroyed it. But if it comes
Mhm.
from a place of purity and it just happens to have that message in it, then that's pretty much the way to go. Wouldn't you
Yeah, I
say?
believe you're right. Yeah, yeah.
So,
I think so.
using alpha dogs as an example, you had this beloved pit bull, that and his basically the resentment and uh, you know way that this community kind of like rejected him without knowing him,
Mhm.
kind of inspired you to say, what if there's like a superhero pit bull and yet nobody will trust him because he's a pit bull, and that's
Yeah,
a really, really cool idea. But that idea came from, the plight of your dog and the
yes,
prejudice,
exactly.
right?
Yes,
But
exactly. It was kind of like that,
mhm.
yeah.
But
So
see, that's the thing though, is when you basically the story comes from the point you're trying to make rather than, doing the story becoming the point you're trying to make. it really is two entirely different things, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even with Alpha Dogs, even though it's a pit bull, it's a very, universal theme of love for your, whether it be a dog, cat, whatever, everybody.
Hmm.
I think for me, I've always had a special place like everybody else because they're so loyal. It doesn't matter if you're even a jerk, they still will love you unconditionally. So I kind of wanted to showcase that with the character Buck in the story. So even though he's got a big heart and loves his owner, so it's got that theme, but it's also a very exciting story. It's a very thrilling story. You've got this dog that can heal from any wound. He's smart enough to understand human speech. He has a heightened strength. And him and his owner have been on the run for all of the dog's life, away from mercenaries that are trying to kidnap him to manipulate his power. So it's got a lot of fun, a lot of twists in it that I think people are enjoying.
Well, let me. I pretty much got all your trailers off of your your channel. Let me play the second one. That sounds like because it has kind of him as a puppy and kind of like that. Let me play it real quick.
The trailers are old. They get your blood pumping, hopefully.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and that's I have the latest campaign is pinned in the chat if anybody wants to go check it out. It's 1 through 5. That's why I'm playing some of these trailers that are older. It's because you can get all 5 books in that campaign. 60% funded right now. Hopefully, maybe I can get you a few more backers before it's over with.
That'd be great. It'd be good.
Yeah.
We were actually. I was actually doing this. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that the Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Obviously, I prefer you go to the Kickstarter because that helps fund the comic to get to the next one. But the Alpha Dog was signed by publisher Source Point Press for the graphic novel, so they only put graphic novels out. That's kind of the way that publishers kind of like to do it nowadays. So I think it's a testament to the story, and the art is really well done. That was able to get a publisher with the series. So actually, I'm doing a signing for the release that gets released, the graphic novel, officially in stores February 25th. So I'll be doing a signing at Schuler Books in Okemos, Michigan, if anybody's in that area for the release of the book, which is really, really cool after years of working on it. So it's a real fun book that I think people really enjoy, especially if you have pets that you really it's like your best friend, like ours is.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a dog that passed away about a year ago. Second day of this year. But she was pretty much I'd kind of like shut off parts of myself and not realized it, and then this little dog came into my life, and it's the monkey's paw, even it, no matter how much you love them, they're not going to last, and eventually
Yeah.
they're going to, break your heart.
Oh yeah.
And so there's a part of you that wants to kind of like hold some back, but when they're wagging
Oh
your
yeah.
tail and loving you,
Yeah,
you're like,
exactly.
this is gonna hurt. This is gonna hurt, and every day,
I know.
you
I know.
know,
It's tough. It is tough. They're
yeah.
more loyal than friends a lot of times.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. But that's kind of really good fertile ground for a hero. There's been like, what did you think about the Superman trailer when Crypto showed up?
I thought it was pretty cool. I think everybody's going to see Crypto though more than Superman because that was what we talked about. And I thought, oh, that's cool. I'm hoping that maybe with the
Yeah.
Crypto and may help push people to more eyes on Alpha Dogs because I've been doing Alpha Dogs. The first issue
Right.
came out in 2021 on Kickstarter, and now we're at issue 5, and there's been a lot of progress. We had some pre-order numbers for the graphic novel, which I was encouraging.
Right.
So hopefully it'll take off because it's a very original, unique story. And I think if you were a fan of something different, and if you're a fan of indie comics, then I think you'll enjoy it because it's got these dogs that have other these distinct abilities, but they have big hearts, and there's a lot of drama that happens in this story. So, it's not some hokey dog talking and stuff. It's very grounded in a, suspension of disbelief is definitely kicking in because it's not, it's these dogs have real personalities and, interact with each other. So it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. Well, hey, Matthew, what's up, dude? Good to see you,
How's it
man.
going?
Well, one thing that about when you kind of have a point to make with your work, and I see this a lot, especially mainstream. Like they'll put out a book that's the LGBTQ issue, and so every page is going to be like pushing LGBTQ, blah blah blah, and I remember back in the day, there was a character called North Star, and North Star was a mutant with Alpha Flight, and it never kind of like occurred to me that he was a gay character because that wasn't the most important thing about him, until later it's like, oh, North Star was gay. It's like, oh, really? I liked him as a character, but then it's like, oh, by the way, he's gay,
Okay.
Now it's like they show up and hi, and it's like,
yeah, I don't know. I haven't read Marvel and DC in quite a long time. I pretty much stick to the indie Image. I'm a big fan of Image.
Right.
So yeah, I don't really know too much of what's going on in Marvel and DC, to be honest.
Well,
I know they got blue titles out now.
Well, it's like a good example is this show. This game came out called Dragon Age Velguard, and and there's this cutscene where this was the person who was over the whole project was trans. Okay.
Oh, okay.
And so they made sure that you could have trans breast scars or breast removal scars in their character development or whatever. But it's like, okay, well, whatever, that's one thing. But then there's this cut scene that kind of like went around, and you gotta watch this thing. It's like the most awkward thing ever, and it says that one of these this like creature is like her, and then all of a sudden, excuse me, actually, I prefer to be known as blah blah blah, and it's like right in the middle of this game, and it's like, okay, yeah, what's that in there, and and it takes it just ruins the verse. It's called verisimilitude. Sorry for the big word, but it just means ability to stay engrossed or ability to stay immersed. And you're reading, or and if you cause somebody to lose that, then you failed in your job, right?
Mhm.
And so if I'm reading Alpha Dog and I'm enjoying it and everything, and then all of a sudden, one of your the female character just suddenly has a speech to the camera about how everybody is like mean to pit bulls, and that they really don't need to get to know pit bulls, and if they didn't, if and they're wrong if they don't like pit bulls, and it's like word bubble right there, and then you're like back to the book, and but if you did something like that heavy handed, or just like paused for a sermon in the middle of your book, which is
Yeah.
happens all the time in modern comics. And
Okay.
and it's like, well, basically, I'm gonna actually go out of my way to be mean to pit bulls now because you preached at me and tried to shame me into it, and it just has reverse reaction, you know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I see.
People don't like being preached at. They just don't, unless it's Sunday
No.
morning and the preacher's up there with a Bible in his hand. I don't want you talking to me like that, And
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I think at the end of the day, almost everybody, once you get into your late 20s, 30s, you're gonna. I would think about 90% of people gravitate to what their parents believed in, because
Right.
that's your upbringing, and people stray. Go to college or whatever. But I think at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, people will gravitate towards what their family believes, their mom and dad.
Hmm.
So being preachy, telling people what to think, I think that's just a waste of time, and it just breeds negativity. So I stay out of
Yeah.
politics when it comes to my Kickstarters, and
Mhm.
yeah, in my comics, I don't think there's much of a place for it, because 30% believe one way, 30% believe the other way, and then about you know the rest of them, 40%,
Yeah.
just want to read a comic book. They don't want to be preached to. So
Well, one of the points that I've had made to me is that used to we would watch stuff, and like GI Joe would have like the knowing is half the battle. You'd have that little thing at the end,
oh yeah.
you know. But it was specifically for that, and then
Hmm.
in the show that preceded it was a straight up show, right?
Yeah.
And but then it's like, oh, here's the PSO, the conjunction, conjunction junction, what's your function,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the things like that. When you saw that, you knew you were going to be learning something, because that's where, that's what its purpose was, right? And
Yeah, yeah,
and so
absolutely.
that's one thing. But if you're but back then there was like when there was something in art, they didn't like beat you over the head with it. They just
Yeah.
assumed that you make the connections you needed to make, right? And
Hmm.
there's almost a presumption in people's intelligence. And so, I mean, I started seeing this kind of change. You got shows like Hill Street Blues that was just like blunt and beating you over the head, with and All in the Family, Norman Lear shows. They tend to be pretty blunt, about
Yeah.
their preachiness. But
Hmm.
but then there's other shows where at the end of the day, like Quantum Leap did this really well, to where he would leap into somebody's uh you know life, like a leap into a black guy's life, and you'd see kind of like through his perspective, or leap
Hmm.
into a housewife's life, and you'd see some things from her perspective. But it was a story, and you're watching the story, and if you learn something, it's because you learned something about that person's life,
Yeah.
and you got to live in somebody else's life for a minute, right? And that
Hmm.
just expanded your empathy. But these days
Absolutely.
they just assume that you don't have enough empathy And so they don't just presume that you'll get the idea or get the message, and so they
Mhm.
just blatantly like shove it down your throat and are just
Yeah,
really open with
that's
it.
true. Yeah, that seems to
And
be the case.
oh yeah, oh definitely. Yeah, you could probably give me some examples that you're watching something and it's supposed to be one thing, and then suddenly they blatantly made it into something else. You're
Mhm.
watching this thing and this woman that he's like dealing with suddenly uh girlfriend shows up and they snog, and they make a point to make sure you see them kissing, and so like, oh, she's a lesbian. What's that got to do with the thing? It's got nothing to do with the thing. They just want to make a point that here's some representation. We've got representation, and you see this like all over media, and somebody pointed out that there's been like more anti-gay sentiment in like the last 5 years, and they saw even before, even back when people were closeted all the time, and
Okay.
and the reason why is because it's been shoved down people's throats so much, and they've been so heavy-handed with it, and they've shoved it into everything, even things where it doesn't belong, and because of that, people, if you give somebody too much of a thing, what are they going to do? They're going to puke eventually, right?
Yeah,
Then they
yeah.
never want to eat the thing again. Have you ever had like something that you ate too much of, and then you had an aversive a reaction, and you'll never eat it again? Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
it's called a fixed aversion, right? And
Mhm.
like for me, I got sick off of a coconut cream pie when I was 2 years old. I mean, this is how far back it goes, and for a long, long time, I just smell a coconut cream pie, and I was ready to Ralph. I mean,
Yeah,
there's no way I could eat it, right?
yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Yeah,
and so when you're really heavy-handed with your messaging, and you're really heavy-handed with the cause, and you want to make sure people are down with the cause, and so much so that you shove it in every single nick and cranny. There's a like a meme of woman asking her child, how was school?" And all of a sudden they vomit up a rainbow. you know, they, they like
yeah.
vomit and it's like rainbow, right? And and you see all these TikToks of these teachers with rainbow flags everywhere, and they're just like proselytizing and making, and and then we find out like there's been a 30% increase of kids that identify as LGBTQ in the last 10 years. And it's like, that's not natural, but it's gonna cause a backlash.
Yeah.
And occasionally having like Billy Crystal on soap, that's one thing, or occasionally there's a character that is gay, but it just so happens that just you find that out in the course of their interactions with other people. That's one thing. But when every single character, I mean, Marvel at one time, I kid you not, the X-Men, every single character was gay, and every single one of them was gay. And I was like, well, at least they didn't get Scott and Wolverine. And it's like, oh, Scott, Wolverine, and Jean threesome. Oh, of course they are, because of course they are.
That's
And,
funny.
and after a while, you're just like I'm pretty much over this, and
Mhm.
and and so when you got something, if you got something to say with the work uh, that you're doing, then uh, having it come from the work or having it come from the concept, like you started with Alpha Dogs, that's something entirely different from starting with the cause and then
Mhm.
creating something enforced or to portray the cause.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I think that's really where they screw up. especially lately. Got a
Yeah.
couple comments over here. Let me get those. Oh, Wrangler. There you go, man. Yeah. gives a whole new meaning to the term X-Men. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Alpha Dog's actually just kind of like X-Men, but with dogs. You've got these dogs with their own distinct abilities that go out to try and stop this. The antagonist, this Monto, who's this big, he can grow to this big hulking size. And so they're on a journey to try and stop him in the next series, because we've done the first one, the first volume, where it's Buck and his owner on the run from the mercenaries. And then the girlfriend of this engineer is Buck's owner, and she brings him to meet the dog, something that she's never done. She's always kept the secret of the dog's abilities. And he comes in, he kind of sweeps her off her feet, and she divulges the secret of the dog's powers. But little does she know, he already knows of the dog's abilities, and has created the serum that, once in possession of their blood, he created his own dogs with their own powers. So he's trying to kind of build this army of dogs for his revenge plot that we kind of figure out in issue 5 through the series. But yeah, if you're a fan of X-Men, then you would enjoy the series, because it's, they're all on a mission, their own distinct personalities. You've got one dog, a Chihuahua, who's really intelligent, another dog that can leap 200 yards, another one that can turn invisible, and the main character, Buck, who can heal from any wounds. So it's a real fun series that people can get behind if you're a fan of, superhero teams. Only this time it's with dogs.
Right.
It's kind of.
I've got another trailer I can play. Let me play one right quick. All right. There you go.
Yeah,
it's
pretty. We get a lot of things going on here with the dogs trying to weed out this villain of the story. Yeah, there you go.
We were super soldiers and now super canines. Yeah. Well, one other theme. I don't know if you deliberately put this in there, but the inhumane treatment of animals that they're being experimented on. Was that another theme in there? Okay,
yeah.
Good.
It's kind of, these dogs that are, kind of, well, in my story, the dogs can understand human speech. They're intelligent enough to know what humans are saying. Of course, they can't talk to humans because they sound like dogs, but they communicate. The dogs communicate with each other. So this bioengineer who can take cancer patients' blood, kind of engineer them to weed out the cancer cells, destroy them. He's developed to kind of cure cancer, but he's got the dog's blood that he extracts to create his own dogs with their own distinct abilities. So it's kind of a little bit about the experimenting dogs. It's not really a part of the issue too much, other than the dog's owner convinces him to get his blood drawn for her new boyfriend.
Well, that's also a good point to be made, in that it's part of. I mean, it's a sub theme. It's a theme that's in the work because of the nature of the work.
Yeah.
Somebody would get that from it, but you're not just sitting there like, look at how horrible these dogs are treated. Look at the torture they're going through, and And
Yeah,
it's like when people are like heavy-handed, it's like Sarah McLaughlin in the SPCA commercials. Dear Lord,
yeah,
oh my God,
yeah,
it just make me want to like hang myself from the nearest rafter.
yeah,
And it's
yeah.
like in the arms of the angels, and oh my God, and it's so
Yeah,
heavy-handed. I mean, it's so
yeah,
heavy-handed, and it just it's just like I've never like tortured a dog in my life, but I feel like emulating myself out of empathy for all these poor tortured animals,
yeah. I
and
know
uh, and then of course
terrible.
there's the like donate here, at the end, and I'm sure there's plenty of people with tears rolling down their face. They're like, oh
Yeah,
yeah, okay, okay. But
yeah. I'd be interested to see how much actually
that
goes to help.
heavy-handed approach. Right. Most of it's probably for administrative causes,
Yeah,
kind
I
of like
think that
USAID.
little
But I'm
pink.
not going there anyway.
Yeah, I think they said that the whole
But
pink cancer, movement to
yeah,
donate
right.
is like 20% actually goes to it.
Oh, I stopped. I when I found that out, I stopped giving to anybody. I don't give
Yeah,
to even March of Dimes now because of the all of it goes to like administrative causes, which means you got a CEO with $1 million like endowment every year, and it's like, oh, why the hell am I going to donate to your $1 million CEO?
yeah, yeah. I think
Which is
the
you'd
Shriners
be
are the
surprised how many.
one.
Mhm,
Yeah, I think the
right.
Shriners about the only ones that actually donate 100% is the Shriners. So
Yep. I know that the Baptist State Convention, everything that gets donated to them goes straight to
oh, cool.
whatever they said it's going to, which is why
Mhm.
people still give to them when they don't
Yeah,
give to a lot of things anymore. It's
yeah,
like round up. You want to round this up? And Ronald McDonald, the Ronald McDonald houses do get some of most of that. So
yeah.
I
But
don't
it's
mind
also a
doing that
tax
for Ronald
write-off for
McDonald
all
houses.
those places too. Like when they ask you to
Ah, right.
donate at Walmart, that's all a tax write-off for them. So
Right. Yeah, this is funny. Those commercials can make Dexter feel guilty, right? Yeah, be a psychopath somewhere, grinding up somebody in a wood chipper, going like, "Oh man, I gotta give to the puppies." Anyway, Goodwill is a scam. Yep, Goodwill has $1 million CEO. Yeah, I haven't
wow,
given a cent to them since I found
yeah,
that out. Um,
geez.
Samaritan's Purse. Definitely. I know that most of their goes to helping people. They
Okay.
do have it costs, but most of the donations that's gone to them goes to the community. Um, which is why here lately when the Hurricane Helene thing hit, everybody was like, if you go donate to anybody, either donate to local churches or donate to the Samaritan's Purse, because those are the only way you're gonna get you're gonna get it to the people. Because
Yeah,
people are trying to donate to FEMA. That money ain't getting to nobody. Okay.
it does sound like it.
We just
Yeah.
found out today that FEMA was sending 39 million, just cut a check, 39 million to keep illegals into a motel in Manhattan.
Oh, that's nice of them after all the
Yeah,
hurricane
exactly.
fires.
Exactly. So that happened. Samaritan's Purse is legit. Yep, it is. That's Billy Graham's son. So Franklin
Looks just
Graham.
like his
That's
dad
pretty
too.
good pedigree. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a pedigree right there. Funny thing about it is he was the black sheep, and everybody was sure he was going to give his dad a black eye, and he's done more than his dad has ever done,
Oh
and
wow.
that's
Wow.
that's that's just brilliant. That's just
Hmm.
brilliant. No, it was 60 million. My fault.
Oh
60 million.
jeez.
There you go. I
That's
thought it was
insane.
39 million, but okay. But anyway, so that's one thing about when I look at Alpha Dogs, and I look how it's set up, and I'm like, okay, this is a book that is a story first, and like incidentally, while you're looking at this story and identifying with this pit bull, it's gonna like change maybe your opinion of pit bulls in general. You know?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, there's always bad eggs with anything.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah,
But,
I've got another one, so.
But you're not like saying, every other page, like pit bulls are little cute, fluffy, animals, and they're not going to hurt a flea, And,
he's very fierce when it comes to defending his loved ones in the story.
Right. And I know people with pit bulls, and they're babies, they're little babies, and then. I've seen people like rehabilitate pit bulls. I mean, coming out of fighting rings, and they're not, it's the owners are usually the problem with any animal. Anyway, I came in late. Where can I get the book? Like I said, it's pinned in the chat. Also, it's in the description. The information in the description.
It's on Kickstarter right now.
So anyway, Wookie. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was just going to say
Kickstarter 1 through 5.
Yeah, it's on Kickstarter right now.
Yeah, 1 through 5 is on Kickstarter right now. You're going to put out the graphic novel later this year, I believe you said.
Yeah, so the graphic novel is available in the Kickstarter as well. That was on Kickstarter about a year ago now, the graphic novel. So you can get the graphic novel, or you get the single issues, the 1 through 5. But the graphic novel is going to be in stores because I was fortunate enough to get a publisher on February 25th. It's limited right now. It's still nobody knows me, from Adam. So it's still going to be building up and hopefully getting more and more stores. I'll be doing some signings and stuff. So we'll see what happens, but it's pretty cool.
Now, it sounds like a strange question, but there's a reason behind it. Was it written for the floppy, or was it written to be a graphic novel?
It was written to be the floppy because it was my first comic that I ever put on Kickstarter, so I didn't know if it was even going to get funded. So the story's all written out. There's this first story arc is 10 issues when it's all said and done. So this will be the halfway point. So it's got a long ways to go, and hopefully with the success of the graphic novel being in stores, that I can churn them out a lot faster than what I've been doing, because as anybody knows, you don't make any money on your comics. Yeah,
it's all out of your pocket. Well, the reason I say that is because my friend Mad Ruth, you were on his show a couple of nights ago. But he writes Soul Tack, and Soul Tack was actually written for the floppy, and the first thing I got was the graphic novel, and I was like, the flow is wrong. It's like cramped for some reason. It's not, And then he's like, well, he said it was written for the floppy, and then I got the floppies, and when I read the floppies, I was like, this is what it was written for, and and it actually flowed better, and it was just not that it was a bad story in the graphic novel, but I could tell that the pacing was off. But when you write it for the floppy, reading it in the floppy form is actually the best way to read it. Because they're doing this thing now where they're writing to the graphic novel in the mainstream, and the individual stories are suffering because of it. Because they don't feel like issues, they feel like chapters, and that's why I always ask that. So if it's written for the floppy, that's the form that I want to get it in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you can get each floppy or graphic novel with issue 5 on the Kickstarter, and I've got a lot of tiers. I've got one it's only $20, and you get all 5 of the digital comic books, which is about 130 plus pages of comic for only $20. So I try to keep it as low as possible. There's another tier where it's $40 for digitally. You can get all my comics, which is the first 5 issues of Alpha Dogs plus the first 4 issues of my series Dinosaur Detective. It's a supernatural crime mystery series, and then I have issue 1 of Space Cruising, which is kind of a buddy comedy sci-fi comic book,
Mhm.
which is a lot of fun too. You can look on reviews on my social media, go to YouTube and look at reviews. People have really enjoyed it, and that one will also be published as well, The Dumpster Detective, when it's a
Cool.
graphic novel form.
Well, you've been prolific. Awesome.
Trying.
Yeah. Yeah, all my work, all the work that I'm writing right now is kind of like in limbo. I give them full scripts and then
Yeah.
wait to see if they'll hit the light of day. So I
Mhm.
have a lot of projects that are like kind of like in media res, but none of them's kind of like landed yet. So somebody's gonna
Yeah,
see if they all kind of like land at one time. Somebody's gonna be like, "Whoa, Cooper's been busy," But
Yeah, it's definitely it's a lot of hard work. But
well, if you're a writer, you could have like 30 scripts in any period of time that are in
well, absolutely. I've
various.
got years and years
Yeah.
of him sitting around.
Right. I got a hard drive full of them.
Mhm.
But anyway, like a cool book to check out. Yeah. I'm
It's really good.
probably
Only about 2% of writers or comic books actually get published. So the fact that it's being published, I think it is a good book. I swear. if you go to the Kickstarter page, you'll see all
There
the
you go.
different tiers. There's preview pages. I've
Right.
got a great artist friend of Malik who's done work for Marvel, DC,
Mhm.
all of them. Does the artwork, so it's really nice on
Yeah,
there.
your artwork definitely has a mainstream polish to it.
Yeah,
Definitely
he's
looks like
amazing. And
somebody that
the colorist Lucas is amazing as well.
Right. Well, if you can find an artist that you can work with and kind of like that interprets your work the best, you got to you got to stick to that person. Dave Brink, who
absolutely.
was in here earlier, him and Pal Rodricks just make magic together.
Yeah,
His
actually,
artist.
I'll be on his show sometime soon too.
Cool. Yeah, he's a good guy to go to.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, well, thank you for coming on. If we're gonna sum up everything tonight, what we're talking about is how to do a calls comic right. If you have, and the I would say a summary. You can't make a calls comic. You've got to make a comic with a calls.
Yeah,
Would
that's
that be
absolutely
accurate?
right. Yes, absolutely. You don't want to beat anybody over the hammer with anything. It should be a
No.
lot of, I think, in metaphor. So you can enjoy it. If you want to dig into it, then by
Right.
all means. But yeah, I think that's very important.
Well, a friend of mine, his book kind of had like parts of it that that kind of had a conclusion to be drawn, and if you drawn that conclusion, he had in the back like places you could go to get more information.
Okay.
And but he didn't like blatantly, oh, this is about suicide, or this is about you know uh the Tibetan monks or something like that,
Mhm.
but he's like at the end of it acknowledging that okay, this topic was in this book, or this kind of like, if you want to know more about this particular thing, like
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what it was about, but I remember thinking that was a good way to go about it.
Yeah,
If you
sounds good.
came to this conclusion in this book, then this would be something more that you can look into. And
Absolutely.
but I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. But I do think that where the mainstream really screws up is they make the calls the comic,
Mhm.
and yeah, LGBTQ, the police brutality, things like that, when they just like go over the top with it,
Mhm.
and it's like so preachy, and and people, if they detect any kind of agenda other than telling me a story, then they'll reject what you're preaching to them about.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. Absolutely.
it's like I what are they called? The comics that had like Static Shock and Icon, that particular comic book company. But they had like this basically Static Shock was like he was a cartoon and he's all this other stuff. But he was a
Okay.
really popular character. But when
Hmm.
but when they went back and they like relaunched the imprint that he was part of, they made his origin a BLM rally.
Oh, okay.
And basically not only did they date the comic, but it was a heavy-handed message to the first few pages. And this went from a light-hearted book that originally it was a light-hearted book. This guy was kind of like a black version of Spider-Man. It's kind of
Okay.
like that lightheartedness, kid thrown in the deep end with amazing powers kind of thing. And
Yeah.
but when they relaunched it, they couldn't help themselves. They just could not help themselves. And so
Yeah.
suddenly origin is that active police violence during a BLM rally, and somehow he got powers out of that. I don't even know
Okay.
what it
That's
was,
interesting.
but as soon as I heard that, I was like, I'm not touching this with a 10th pole,
Yeah.
But that's a good example of how to just totally make the cause more important than the comic,
Yeah. Yeah.
or
Sounds
even a book. Yeah, even with books, I'm reading one today. I was listening to one today that was written by Blaine Pardoe and Mike Barron, and it's called
okay.
Tenure, about a professor who loses his job over mispronouncing some crazy chick, and she goes after him, and he loses his job, and whatever that's called, mispronouncing,
Okay.
misgendering, I guess. But gave her the wrong pronouns, and so she went ballistic. And the book is like so heavy-handed, and I love both of these writers. I respect them up to high heaven, but I'm finding the book a slog because I can tell that that the whole anti-SJW thing was the whole entire reason the book was written. And
Yeah.
so because there's agenda on every page, it's just becoming a slog, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. I think, yeah. I
but
think your
and that
job
was a,
as a writer is
go
to
ahead.
entertain. That's why people buy your book, to be entertained. Books,
Exactly.
movies are all an escape from reality. That's why I don't know why people
Right.
like these sad stories, because it's like I got enough
Yeah.
sadness in life, or these movies where
Right.
the kid gets the cancer. It's like I just want to sit back and chill and be entertained. So yeah, I've never understood why people feel the need to preach to somebody, because honest, like I said,
Mhm.
you know, most of our values are when we were kids, raised by our parents. And so
Right.
nobody's
Yeah.
book is nobody's book is going to make you change your mind, in my opinion. Even if
No.
you do, it's kind of short term, because we all kind of
Right.
gravitate to the beliefs of our parents. I think so.
Well, Disney World Parks is about to get clobbered this summer because people that had agenda over entertainment value took over Disney, and
Yeah.
just totally ruined the park in a lot of ways. And
Hmm.
but then Universal Studios, right across the way, their entire agenda is to make something entertaining and fun, and they
Yeah.
are opening up and they are going to clobber Disney
Hmm.
World. They may put them in the ground this summer,
Hmm.
and it's just because when you start with agenda, all you accomplish is the agenda,
Yeah.
And so that's pretty much the message I think you can get out of this today. Before we go, Wookie wanted to know who made your cover on for number 5.
The main cover, if you're talking about the main cover, that's Fernando Malik. He actually does interior work too. It's an amazing cover. All of them are
Okay.
amazing covers. So the first cover is the main cover that he did. Then we have
Mhm.
the variant cover, which is an homage to Hulk issue 1 with Monto, the
Ah,
antagonist of the story. And then, because Days of
yeah.
Future Past X-Men is one of my all-time favorite X-Men stories, I had to do my Days of
Yeah.
Future Past homage cover. So it's all really awesome covers they do.
Also a comic with a message, but it wasn't heavy-handed.
No,
That's why
yeah,
it's
he
last.
was definitely not heavy-handed. He went through his comics, and I mean, Days of Future Past is like only like 2 issues, and it's funny because when you look at now these Marvel, they're stringing comics out, one storyline for 12 issues, and Claremont
right.
was amazing at being succinct, and I try to do it in my writing. I try to move along. There's no narration in my comics. I let the visuals tell the story. So I hope people.
Well, I have a different style. I allow narration, but
narration is great to help move the story along to progress. I'm just saying.
Well, I'm not saying that my narrator's reliable, though. I'm not saying their narrator's reliable. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can play with that anyway. All right. Well, thank you all for coming to the first Gen X Files. Mr. Alpha Dog is the first customer and the first guest. I believe me and Dave Brink are talking about next week. We'll find out if he's available. But anyway, so this is going to be a new show, culture and politics and whatever. No subject off limits, but it's all going to be from the Gen X perspective. So, that's the promise I'm going to make. So we will see you all Friday. Actually, Thursday, we're going to do another character autopsy on Dr. Doom.
Cool.
Which came from the chat. So that's going to be this Thursday at 6:00. And for Cryptids and Conspiracies on Friday night, me and Wookie, we are going to talk about a guy by the name of Travis Walton. A little movie called Fire in the Sky told his story. And we're going to talk about the dude, his alien abduction. And he's a really interesting story. But that's going to be on Saturday night, Cryptids and Conspiracies. But anyway, it's going to be an exciting week here at the Rabbit Hole. Stop on by. And Dr. Doom, you're right. Anyway, thank you for coming, Jon Dexter. Check out his book. Yep, link is in the chat, and it's also in the description. But thank you all for coming, and we will see you next week. Follow the White Rabbit. Bye, everybody.